let's call this Chanukah Wings. Okay? Is that cold, John? She did put ice in here? No, I don't think. She did? Oh, okay. Thank you. So let's call this, because no notes Chanukah would sound corny, right? Everything is no notes, right? So let's call this Chanukah Wings. W-I-N-G-S. What does that mean? He's going to wing it. That's what that means. If you brought a guest today and you're expecting like an atom bomb sermon, sorry, I can't provide a Hiroshima scenario for you. So, because I don't want to call it No Notes Chanukah, let's call it Chanukah Wings. You know what that means, Brother Chris? I'm going to wing it. Huh? Wing! Wing! Yochanan, chapter 10. There are those who say, now remember I'm winging it, so I need your help here. There are those who say that Chanukah is the Jewish Christmas, and that we as Nazarene Israelites celebrate Chanukah because we need something for our children, and we know Christmas is illegal for a Bible believer, so we have Chanukah in its place. It's the Jewish Christmas, you know. No, it's not the Jewish Christmas. Then you have these other self-appointed gurus or self-appointed machers. Macher is a wise man, who say that Chanukah is Jewish and it is not biblical. And since Chanukah is Jewish and it's not biblical, you should have no part with it. Not biblical. Where in the Bible is Chanukah? This reminds me, when I first started in the ministry, I had a Lutheran pastor help me in my first congregation. He lasted for about 3 weeks, and I was stuck with the congregation, and he walked out. He gave 2 reasons for walking out. One, I was saying I was ordained, but I wasn't ordained. 2, I said that Chanukah is in the Bible. And of course, Chanukah is not in the Bible, according to this Lutheran pastor. So he walked out and he left me over on Griffin, all by myself, laboring with 4 sheep in the shepherd's sanctuary. The shepherd was there, but the sanctuary was gone, honey, because this Lutheran pastor was sure that Chanukah was not in the Bible, that it was unscriptural. So what are we going to call this message, Britt? Chanukah Wings. Buffalo. You've heard of buffalo wings? Chicken wings? This is Chanukah Wings. We're just winging it, honey. I don't know what's going to come out. And yet, on Chanukah, we see, now Chanukah, let me tell you what I don't want to tell you. I don't want to tell you the account of Chanukah, which you should already know, the account of Chanukah. We had a temple. We had a Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. Alexander's Greek Empire was divided into how many quadrants? That's what quadrants means. One of the northeastern quadrants that was divided among Alexander's 4 Greek generals, one of the northeastern quadrants was called the Syrian quadrant. They were Hellenists. They propagated the Hellenistic lifestyle promoted by Alexander the Great. And there came to be a leader, and I don't want to tell you this because you should know it, but this leader was called Antiochus Epiphanes, or meaning the manifestation of deity in Antioch. Antiochus is Epiphanes, meaning Antiochus, the manifestation of deity. He came to Yerushalayim in approximately 150 BCE. Again, this message, chicken wings. I'm sorry, Chanukah wings. You can see I'm winging it, right? And he forbade the study of Torah among the Jewish people. He forbade Shabbat observance among the Jewish people. He forbade Brit Milah, circumcision, among the Jewish people, at the cost of life or limb. If any of the Jewish people were found obeying the Torah, Brit Milah, Shabbat, keeping kosher, they would be immediately executed. We see this account, the historical account of Maccabees, in the book of 1st and 2nd Maccabees, which are, if you're a good Catholic, as opposed to a bad Catholic. I don't understand the difference. If you're a good Catholic, you'll find this in the Apocryphal books, but in the Catholic Douay version, you will find 1st and 2nd Maccabees. It's not scriptural, it's a historical book. And we see that around 150, a family of the Kohanim. Now, I don't want to be telling you this because you know this, right? Everybody here knows all this. So I really don't want to be telling it to you. But around 150 BCE, a priestly family and a dynasty known as the Maccabim, where we get the English word Maccabees, from the acronym, the Hebraic acronym, Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Elohim Adonai, Maccabi. We sing it every Shabbat. Mi Chamocha Ba'elim. We take the acronym, the first letter of that worship, Mi Chamocha Ba'elim Adonai Maccabi. So Antiochus entered the city of Yerushalayim, and Antiochus entered the Temple Mount, and he entered the Holy of Holies, the Kadosh HaKadoshim. And not only he forbid all practice of Torah among the people of Israel, but he also had the chutzpah to go into Yahweh's house, into the Kadosh HaKadoshim, into the Holy of Holies, to desecrate the altar, the Mizbeach of Yahweh. And on the Mizbeach of Yahweh, he sacrificed an oink oink. What do you say in Spanish? ¿Cierto? ¿Cierto? Huh? Cierto, I was right. ¿Cierto? ¿Cierto? Yes? Okay. I was certain it wasn't ¿cierto? ¿Cierto? ¿Sí? ¿Cierto? Okay. So he sacrificed a pig on the altar of Yahweh in the Kadosh HaKadoshim. Now, in addition, he was placing Hellenized practices upon the Jewish people, meaning gymnastics, athletic competition, the highest form of mankind's pursuit, but of course, in the nude. Jewish people were actually having the temptation, many of them, to become Hellenistic, were having their circumcision reversed. They actually went through an ancient, antiquated operation to have their circumcision reversed because they wanted to become Hellenists, like the Hellenistic design and attributes of Antiochus Epiphanes. Again, if you're coming in late, this message is Chanukah Wings, which means I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm just winging it. Okay? So we come to the situation of Hanukkah. The temple was desecrated. The people of Israel were forbidden to practice the Torah at the loss of life, at the loss of limb. And so most of Jewish Israel had gone the ways of the Greeks. They had gone the ways of the Gentiles, just like most Jewish people today. They've gone the way of the Greeks, the Hellenistic, Roman Hellenistic societies. Well, Yahweh had a faithful remnant, a priestly family from the little city of Modin, the little town of Modin. And the patriarch of this family was Matityahu. Not Mattathias. Many of you know him as Mattathias. Matityahu. Yahu, which means what? Yahu Matan is my gift, or gift of Yahweh. Matityahu, gift of Yahweh. And this priest was stricken in heart when he saw the Jewish people forbidden from practicing Torah, forbidden from serving Yahweh. And he said to his sons, sons of Matityahu, it is not meet, it is not right for us to sit here and allow the entire nation to be apostatized. We must rise up and we must fight the oppressors. And that's what they did. They rose up and they fought the oppressors. Now, online I have a teaching, or I may have a teaching in the bookstore. And you'll have to look into it, because I'm not going to go into it today. Where I show you, well, let's put it this way. Who writes history? Who writes history? The winners, the victors. Not the oppressed, the oppressors write history. And we know that the victors, the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, recorded most of modern history. The Jewish people were vanquished. They were subjugated throughout their history. So Jewish history is not very well known, and it's not very well recorded, unless you study it yourself. But when you understand that teaching, I believe it's called, maybe Chris can verify that, the unknown dynasty. How many remember that teaching last year? The unknown dynasty. You need to study and get that teaching, because I show from history. I wasn't winging it back then. Okay, that was before I started winging it like I'm winging it today. I read and I read and I read and I quoted and I read and I quoted and I read and I quoted history and fact after fact, showing you that the Maccabee, the Hashmonaim in Hebrew, or the Hasmoneans, the Hashmonaim, were one of the most powerful military dynasties of the ancient world, comparable to the Greeks and the Romans. And the Romans were scared, were militarily frightened of the Hashmonaim, or the Maccabee dynasty. Most of us don't know that. And starting with the Maccabees and Chanukah, many, many years later, and many decades later, the Maccabean dynasty, or the Hashmonaim, continued unabated until right before the time of Yeshua. Amen? It was one of the most powerful military and economic dynasty in every way, comparable to Rome and Greece. And how many of us don't know that? Because the Jews didn't write history. The Greeks and the Romans wrote history, the history that is used in our textbooks in our schools. We'll do a little homework and get that teaching. How many of you remember that teaching? The unknown dynasty. Unbelievable how powerful. The Spartans and the Greeks in Europe shook out of fear for the Hasmonean dynasty, because they didn't want to be attacked by the Jews. They were more powerful than ancient Greece and Rome. Read it. You don't know. This sounds like strange stuff, doesn't it? Okay. But the beginning of the Hashmonaim dynasty is when this righteous priest named Matityahu rose up and he said the same thing Moshe Rabbeinu said many years ago in the Torah. He that is with Yahweh is with me. He that is against Yahweh is not with me. And all those who were with Yahweh drew themselves to Matityahu to raise up a rebellion or a campaign, a guerrilla campaign. It started out as a guerrilla warfare, but then eventually they became a very strong empire many, many, many decades later. But initially it started out as guerrilla warfare against the Greek influence and against Antiochus Epiphanes. And so this rebellion began. Make a long story short, this handful of faithful Kohanim who followed the Torah, who believed in the Torah, overthrew one of the mightiest empires on the earth, Greece, overthrew them, kicked them out of Yerushalayim, kicked them out of Judea, kicked them out of the temple, and then went into the Kadosh HaKadoshim, went into the Holy of Holies, and rededicated the altar back to Yahweh. They cleansed the altar, they cleansed the temple, and they rededicated the altar and the temple away from Zeus back to Yahweh. And it became known as the Festival of Rededication. It took place approximately 150 BCE, or 150 years before Yeshua. Are you with me? But now we have the question, okay, so what started out as a guerrilla campaign against the mighty Syrian Greek army, same thing, because the four parts of his empire were divided, and that part also became part of ancient Assyria, so they were known at the same time simultaneously as the Syrian Greek Empire. And later on, the Maccabees became a very strong military and economic power. So approximately 150 BCE, we have this uprising, and within, I believe it was 3 years, maybe 3.5 years, but if I recall correctly, if you remember, this is Chanukah Wings, right? Okay. I believe it was 3.5 years, could have been 3. To the exact same day that that Antiochus dedicated the temple to Zeus, the Jews cleansed the altar, cleansed the temple, and rededicated it to Yahweh on the exact same day, 3 years later. Okay? So they managed to overthrow one